biblical psychology?
A biblical psychology. I've actually heard of people. Oh, by the way, we're live.
Hello, internet.
um, yeah, I've heard like there are people who are doing things like that. Personally, well, okay, so for me, it's not a problem really because um, a lot of psychology is actually based on Jewish things. Um, like, so I never, well, no, that's not true. I did go specifically to therapists who look for therapists who were religious because I wanted them to be people who um, didn't think that being religious is some sort of disease or something, you know. But
Lol.
it wasn't. It wasn't. I didn't want them treating my religiosity as a disease. So that's the only thing as far as a biblical psychology, in my view. Like, what were you thinking? What were you looking at?
I call my first rough draft Logos personality. So Logos being Jesus, and then if you have seen Jordan Peterson, sometimes talks about Big Five for personality traits. I think there's some sort of like personality tests kind of go a not good direction, but I like JBP as a biblical series. He talks about Big Five. I'm like, well, we got a rough draft, and so like this entire thing is to be some kind of rough draft. It's not finished or complete or whatever. I'm looking into it, and
Well,
I looked for guys, Carl Rogers, and eventually Maslow. Abraham Maslow came up.
well, do you have any formal training? Like, have you taken any psychology courses?
Nope. I went like in college. I did like a little bit of psychology, but no, not really. Which, funny enough, there's fun things that on Bridges of Meaning. There's people who are in different degrees in the field. I
Yeah.
think one guy, his wife was like very deep, like PhD level or something or other.
Well, Max got his master's of social work, and he's working towards becoming a social worker,
Hmm.
clinical social worker.
Our conversations are pretty great. So
Yeah, I mean,
actually,
I would do some research because you don't want to
no.
reinvent the wheel. I'm
Right. That's why,
opposed to,
yeah.
yeah.
I was looking for people because I don't think I like Jung. I don't think I like Freud. I'm trying to get away from the whole like humans are robots or the brain is a computer. Away from that. Carl Rogers a little bit, and then Maslow is very interesting when I'm reading him. B values as truth, beauty, goodness. That's some people's transcendentals, like my love, truth, wisdom.
Hmm.
So
I
trying to.
really like cognitive behavioral therapy. I think it helped me a lot. Um, So I would look into that because the things that they mention as cognitive distortions are things that I really have found people, including me, fall into that type of thinking, and it is a false type of thinking that does lead you into dark places and um, I'd say
Seems like
ruins
you know
you.
more than me.
What
Seems like you know more than me.
about cognitive behavioral therapy? Probably.
Well, definitely that, but psychology, that seems like a subset of psychology. I've heard people tell me there's sort of a lot of different kinds of psychology, and I'm trying to sort of one of my practical thing, like goals, I guess, is like clear lines between object, subject, transject, patterns, spirits.
Hmm.
Those three categories. So subjects are subjects, not objects. Remember, machines. And I literally look up Big Five, and it's a science paper. I don't think psychology is a science. And then it says like mechanistic, right? I think it's kind of going the direction that I want to stay away from, of like humans are robots. And I'm like, no, no.
Well, I mean, you don't have to believe humans are robots to believe that we have certain ways in which we function.
Yep. And I hear
What do
the
you
word
think of
movement.
Ian McGilchrist?
I don't know.
He's interesting, although he is kind of a Jungian, I think. He's actually a neurologist, like a
Okay.
doctor for like brain surgery type stuff.
Oh, okay. I looked him up, and I've seen this face before.
Yeah, um, he's not a very good communicator. He's a really good thinker. He so unfortunately he doesn't communicate his ideas that well. And I read his book, The Master and His Emissary,
Hmm.
and the information in it was really good. It was not presented very well.
Hmm. Yeah, it
So,
says he's a psychiatrist, and you're talking about sort of all the physical stuff, is what I'm hearing. And that's good. I think that I'm sort of going to look into psychiatry possibly after this. I would distinguish psychiatry, if barely, from psychology. And I'm trying to look into specifically psychology. Again, those clear lines I was saying between the mind, the body, the spirit, object, subject, transject.
yeah.
But thank you for these names and stuff, especially you said something about distortions, and I have looked at.
Cognitive distortions. Yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's really interesting. There are like computer programs or workbooks. So you don't even need another human being to do cognitive behavioral therapy. You can just
Huh.
do it yourself. And it works as well as actually going to a therapist. It works as well as taking psychoactive medications. So I'm a huge fan. I think everybody should definitely do a course of cognitive behavioral therapy. In Los Angeles, the county has this thing where they have a contract with one of these websites that has cognitive behavioral therapy in it. So there are websites like they're not very expensive, but usually they charge. There used to be a free one, but it started charging. That's the one I did initially, and uh, yeah, it just like asks you questions, and it's all automated. It could be a workbook, but it it's been proven to really help, and I totally it changed how I go about thinking about things, and I think for the better.
So I just looked it up, and see, it sounds like something JBP talks about. Facing one's fears is one line in here, and then using roleplay to prepare for potentially problematic interactions with others. Hmm, I made ALR.
What about Olaria?
I looked up cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay,
The thing said, "What is cognitive behavioral therapy?"
there you go. Yeah.
And so I was like, this one, I'm not sure what it means. I'm kind of thinking it not meaning what I mean when, like, role playing games like D&D.
No. I mean, cognitive behavioral therapy is about just noticing certain thought patterns that you fall into.
Hmm.
That, for example, one of the biggest examples is splitting. So, like when you're thinking about, for example, this stream, right? Um, you could think, oh, this will be a great live stream, right? Or it'll be horrible. But it's not either or, right? It might be an okay stream. It might be, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, it might be a 7 or it might be a 3. Or on a scale of 1 to 100, it could be a 45 or a 60, right? So it's like things don't fall into binaries as much as we really start thinking about them into it. So the one of the practices of cognitive behavioral therapy is to notice that you're thinking of things in unnecessary binaries, right? That either this is going to be great or it's going to be horrible, and not, or it could be okay, or it could be good, or it could, you understand what I mean?
Complexity exists.
Yes, and to stop yourself from falling uh, into a distortion which makes you split things. Yeah. So splitting is one of them. Mind reading is another. Like when you think, oh, this person hates me. And it's like, well, how do you know that person hates you? What did they say? What did they do? Right? You can't actually read other people's minds, right? Like, and to stop yourself from, I mean, I get this, you get it this from the woke a lot. Like they'll say, oh, what you really meant, right? You were really trying to, and it's like, no, I wasn't. you know?
Yeah, I feel like I should talk with you more, but I guess you should. I was just realizing that I'm probably kind of whatever you call it on your live stream.
You're what on my live stream?
That like probably your live stream is about something other than me looking into psychology.
It's just chatting. I mean, I did my normal weekly live stream, which
Oh,
is um, before this, which is like I do one chapter of the Bible, but this week the chapter was Genesis 36, and it's just a bunch of names. So
son of, son of, son of.
yeah, so it was like there, there wasn't really
I got you on the
anything.
tail end of it. This is perfect then.
Yeah, so I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna I took a little break and got some more tea and came back, and I'm like, I can just do a little, just chatting live stream. So,
Hmm.
yeah, if anybody wants to join, apparently there's 2 viewers. I don't know who those viewers
Yeah.
are.
Seems like so far what you're saying is helpful. So depending on how you want to do your live stream and or this conversation, I'd like to continue what we're doing.
We can talk about anything you like, including yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy. I think it's really useful. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, also I want to mention, I think in my research, I don't know exactly what it is, but in the research that I saw just now, it seemed to be about like sort of dealing with bad things, I guess. And I think it was Carl Rogers or someone else that it was like sort of um, definitely that's necessary, but that like figuring out the positive side of human nature and like the mind, like what was it, human potential, getting people to like helping people to achieve their full potential, something like that. It's very interesting to me. To me, I think it's like the negative side of things is like limited, but God exists and He is unlimited. He is the good side, and so yeah, that's kind of a big part of what I want Logos personality to be about. And what else was I gonna say? Um, lost my train of thought. So mental stuff, the Logos personality, and figuring out the positive, right? Like unlimited potential.
Just as long as your train of thought doesn't run you over, you're fine.
Yeah.
I've uh, I mean, I've heard the name Carl Rogers before, but I don't really know much about him at all.
Yeah. I'm kind of questioning whether they're closer to a biblical psychology. I'm more sure about Maslow by now than Roger. Um, Rogers seems like, from what little research I've done, seems like he's sort of onto the okay, like love, like we're actual human beings, that kind of stuff. But then I sort of wonder about the balance then with truth, because that's my thing. Love,
Well,
truth.
he did go to the University of Wisconsin Madison, and that's where all evil comes from. So,
Good to know. Good to know. So, like, how much do you know about these names I've mentioned?
well, Maslow I only know because of Maslow's hierarchy.
Right. I've
Jung I know some about. I mean, there's a lot of people who really like him. I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah, you said Jung, right? I am not interested in him actually.
Yeah.
KBP seems to like him, but
Uh,
I think I'm just gonna avoid him with the Logos personality.
yeah, and like so Freud, I mean, it's easy to beat up on him. He was a cocaine addict.
Oh my goodness.
um,
Wow.
but you know, I think he made breakthroughs in psychology. So don't know what to say. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah.
I think psychology should be scientific, and it's
Hmm.
not been scientific for very long. And
Oh,
so,
interesting. Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
I want to talk to people who are like in the field about sort of why psychology would be and would not be scientific. Because I would say that, like, surely I've talked to you about this before. Science is about objects, like only objects,
I'm not
and
sure about
then
that. Why would you
physical,
say science is only about objects?
because physical and natural world, like when you look it up and what sort of I was taught in school, like objects, like I
Well,
don't know how to explain
that's
it.
how materialists like to say science is about, but I don't think that's right.
Yeah, main thing like distinguishing the word study from the word science. I think because
Science is a method, right? It's there's the scientific method of it's an epistemology, and I think you can apply it to all sorts of things, and you should, because it's a very rigorous epistemology. Unfortunately, it's impossible for all your knowledge to be scientific. That's just completely impossible. People who think that their epistemology is completely scientific are just deluding themselves. But I think it's a very rigorous and useful one that for important things we should use the scientific method. And I think religion is an important thing. I think spirituality is an important thing. And I think your mind and mental health are important things. So we should make scientific inquiry into them as best we can. Unfortunately, science is incomplete. You know what I mean?
yeah, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I was gonna say something, and then there's something else you said kind of changed my mind. I guess I'll just still say it because I'm trying to figure out what to say right now.
By the
So
way, the couple of people who are apparently watching, if you guys want to jump into the Discord, feel free. We're just discussing things.
chatting.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Um,
What did you want to say?
so I saw this. It was like a Venn diagram of like four circles, and I'll see how much of it I can remember because it seemed really cool. I don't, I'm kind of this first rough draft, but because you said science is an epistemology, something like that, and then it seemed like you were saying it's one component of, or something like that.
Right. So you can't. So it's false to think that you can have science as your only epistemology because that just doesn't work. It's impossible. Like, if you only know the things that you can know scientifically, then you just don't know enough things in order to live, in order to do anything, right? So, an let's define our terms. Epistemology is the philosophy, the study of how we know things, right? So there are different ways you know things. One of the ways you know is you observe them, right? So I observe that this cup is white and it's as heavy as it is, and so I feel it, right? So observation is one way that you can know something. Well, the scientific method is actually supposed to be even more rigorous than observation because I'm sure you've seen those things that trick your eyes, right?
Right.
So it's possible for your eyes to be tricked. We know that, right? So the scientific method is supposed to really make it a lot harder for things to for the things you know to be wrong, right? So one of the things about science is that it's replicable, right? So it's not just me who sees this and thinks it's a white cup, but several people, right? And so and you measure things, right? So the
The
scientific
assumption being
method
reliable.
is supposed to be even more rigorous than simple observation, okay? And so hey Lance, holy moly, T for Tech on my YouTube screen. Kind of. He doesn't turn his video on. Um,
It's possible nowadays, but I'm also doing other things, so we'll see what happens.
so it. By the way, hi Lance. Um, so to for people like Sam Harris will say that their epistemology is scientific, and it's really really not. There you have to have other ways of knowing things than just the scientific method, or you're just not going to know enough things to be able to live your life.
Okay, and so where did we start from? Science? I don't think
We
psychology is a science. That's kind of
Right. So I think psychology should employ science to try to understand psychology as best we can. But again, just like well, first of all, it hasn't been a science for a very long time. Um,
Okay,
it's
wait. I want to pause you and dig into that in that case. When did it stop becoming a science? Is that how I'd say it?
So I think Freud, Lance says it's a start, and yeah, he's right. Um, so I think Freud was the first person to, well, he wasn't really that scientific. He kind of made it into a actual discipline, whereas before it had kind of been, well, there wasn't a psychology as such. People thought it was part of theology or
Did we use the
philosophy.
word rigorous?
Yeah, so he was the first person to try to actually like write a book and understand
Mm-hmm.
psychology. And a lot of it was just his thoughts that he was writing down, and it wasn't like actually tested with the scientific method. But he was like one of the first people to even start in any way trying to formulate a psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And then other people started actually trying to make it more scientific, and some of them like B.F. Skinner is famous for he was a real materialist, and he thought that like he could program a human being to do anything. Like
Yeah, that kind of stuff is what I want to get away from.
yeah, B.F. Skinner. So even though he really tried to be scientific, and then over the years we've had people like science, it's become more scientific psychology, but like nowhere like biology or medicine or there you are.
Yeah, I was trying to since you couldn't seem to want it.
um so yeah, it so I think part of a large part of the problem is that science isn't I mean that psychology hasn't had enough time to develop. And then what happened was in the 70s, um, the American Psychological Association kind of got taken over by ideologues and the wokerati. And so the problem has become it was scientific for a while, and now the the discipline has been taken over by the wokerati, and so it's becoming less and less scientific, which is ridiculous. but it's true.
Communism. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. I think sort of in that direction of sort of the materialists and woke and all that stuff. That's the bad direction that I'm trying to avoid. Um, and then the occultism possibly of the like personality tests and stuff. At least that's what some people seem to think. And so, what is it called? Yeah, pretty much starting from scripture seems to be a great idea, and so I even call it logos personality. Um, and so like these guys maybe have gotten closer, Maslow and Carl Rogers, possibly others. You've brought up some research things I might look into, and
Lance says, yes, proud of you, T4.
yeah, thanks, Lance. Jesus love you. So I really like the Big Five. You know about that Big Five?
I know some stuff about the Big Five. I don't know a lot.
Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism.
Mm.
The one most sort of relevant at this sort of cultural moment, the agreeableness, disagreeableness spectrum. They're all like there's like sort of two poles, and like people are generally in between, right? Um, and between that and like making clear that it's like a snapshot of uh, the Jello is what me and Ian have talked about. In other words, like people might change. Some people seem to have like problem with that with these like personality tests and not like it because. But anyways, between that and like I don't know if I've said my phrase to you. I wonder if a mind is a story with cognition and personality. Sort of partly comes from Paul Vanderklay and others. And so I'm trying to explore because it's a
No,
study of
thank
the
you.
mind.
Sorry,
'Cause-
the cleaning person. By the way, somebody new just joined. Hi, Neil deGrasse Titan. That's funny. Um, are you secular? No, we are most definitely not secular.
yeah, God.
So you well, okay. So the thing is, I know people have tried to make a biblical psychology, and I know there's a lot of stuff out there. As far as that, I just I don't know how far they've gotten, and I think sometimes it becomes easy to try to find things in the Bible that just isn't there and God didn't put there, right? And I think that can be a mistake.
I'm texting you things because I didn't want to interrupt you, and it's kind of cool as a form of notes anyway, so.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. If anybody has any comments or things to talk about, feel free to put it into the chat or come into the Discord, and we will talk and chat and stuff.
That social stuff.
Yeah. Be social human beings together.
Gasp! Okay, so I'd kind of put a little bit of notes there. I also kind of do that with Ian.
Do you think God is a part of the subconscious of people?
Kind of sounds like God is our invention kind of deal, which I would be like, no, we are God's invention.
Yeah, yeah. I think so. No, I very much don't think so. I think that we have a part of our soul which comes from God, which helps us know what is good and what to do right. And I think that's a useful part that will, for most people, help us to feel guilty about bad things and feel good about good things. But I would never say that God is a part of anything, really. So, yeah.
I like the word conviction for like the good one, that like the Holy Spirit makes us aware of our sin. guilt is always a bad thing by the way I use that word. In case
See,
people are hearing, I use words differently than a lot of people, and so
I wouldn't say guilt is always a bad thing. I wouldn't. I don't believe that.
hmm
Eh,
guilt, shame, and hate. It's kind of my like unholy like trinity of a certain context.
guilt, what, and hate?
Guilt, shame, hate.
Oh, I
Or
have to totally disagree with shame. I think shame is is necessary and good. I'm a big
yeah,
fan of shame.
yeah. I have to look up the scriptures. I think I had some scriptures to back that up. I'll have to research it again, and we can talk about that whenever we can.
Yes, we can.
It's always great talking to you, Jacob. I'm not leaving or anything. I just
Aww. It would have been nice if we had gotten to meet when I was in the area.
yeah. Well,
Some
God
other
works all
time.
things out.
It'll happen, I'm sure, when it's supposed to happen. Lance Cleaver says, "No, but we all bear the image of God, which connects us at a deeper level with subconscious." Mm-mm. I guess. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure I would. So for me, I would say we were formed in the image of God, and then God breathed our the soul into us, and I think that is the part. But like, the Jewish concept of soul is a lot more complex than most Christians. Like, yeah, the we have a much more complex idea of actually not just one soul, but like the different levels of your soul and parts of your soul, and like, yeah. So
If you want to talk about it, I've looked up some things on shame, and I think that'd be cool to talk about.
sure.
You may be using the word differently than I do. I don't know, but I looked up this, and so like the repentance thing, that's I think a big thing for me. Like that which leads you to repentance. Perhaps I would use a different word than shame for that. And then if like what I'm using the word shame is like to keep you in that pit of despair, something like that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't want to be kept in a pit of despair, but I don't think that's what necessarily shame. I mean, I would want to know which Bible verses because for me, like the word that I think of as far as shame is uh, busha, boshet panim, right? And that's used as shame in the Bible, and
This is why I talked to you. You
it's
actually
not
know.
a bad
I'm just trying to
thing.
learn it.
Um, so Neil deGrasse Titan says, "Why do you think there are various interpretations of the Garden of Eden story?" Um, so being Jewish, I believe that there are shivim panim laTorah. There are 70 faces, and 70 is actually a substitute for large number of the Torah. I think the Bible is deep enough and good enough, and that it um, includes lots of different. It includes lots of different um, understandings. So let's look at Isaiah 61:7 because that seems to have the word shame in it. Isaiah
Yeah, I'm seeing some verses, but let's try that first. 60, what, 11?
61:7. I'm pulling it up. Isaiah. This is being slow. 61.
Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion. And instead of disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance.
Okay, so tachat boshtechem mishne uchlima yaronu חלקם. לכן בארצם משנה ירשו, שמחת עולם תהיה להם. So here, shame is a bad thing. Let me see where the first place this word bosh shows up. Genesis 2:25.
Probably one of the ones that brought up on mine also. I do see in my research it's saying a bit about like being trapped in shame. So this makes me wonder, how you use that word. You said bosh. What? What was the Hebrew word?
Boshesh. Good night, Lance.
Bye, Lance. Usually.
So in Genesis 2:25 it says Ve'yihu shnehem arumim ha'adam ve'ishto ve'lo yitbosheshu. So the two of them were naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed of themselves. It's in the reflexive here.
Mm-hmm. When they did feel shame, it led them to hide.
Yeah, but is it? I mean, I'm not sure that it's a bad thing. Let's see what the concordance says.
Mm-hmm.
Verb. So this is Strong's number 954. Bosh.
If you don't mind me interrupting you, I wonder if you're maybe thinking of like in community and like the social skill of like a person like kind of does bad or just like mildly bad like sort of social like habit, I guess, and like we shame them to sort of this corrective measure. I wonder if you're.
I think that's part of it, but also having shame just in front of God. I think when you do something wrong, you should have shame in front of God. That's yeah. So verb to be ashamed, call perfect, and it gives a bunch of them. Feel shame, ashamed of something, or disconcerted or disappointed by reason of something. With object lishol, right? I am ashamed to ask. Lo tavushu. You are not ashamed. Polel. Boshesh. Moshe. I'm trying to see if I can find a place where it's used positively in the Bible or not. So Proverbs 17:2. Eved maskil yimshol beven mevish uvtoch achim yechalek nachala. A wise servant will rule over a shaming son, an ashamed son. Well, no, this is a son who causes shame. So that's not a positive thing. Yeah. So make, bring, to, cause, put to, be with, ashamed, to be put to confusion. A primitive root, properly to pale, by implication to be ashamed, also by implication to be disappointed or delayed.
Are you not trying to say like you should repent? Kind of, you're trying to say like in the face of God, as in we have weaknesses, and so we should get over those weaknesses and get closer to God.
Yeah, I'm thinking of something in a specific part of the liturgy, and I assumed that it came from the Bible, but I want to check. Yeah, it comes from Daniel 9:7. So Daniel 9:7 says, Um, with you, O Lord, is the right, and the shame is on us to this very day. Yeah, the Lacha Havaya Hatzedaka Velanu Boshet Hapanim. This is something that that we say in so most of pretty much all of the all pretty much all of the yeah, so pretty much all of the Jewish liturgy comes from various places of the Bible. And yeah, so the I didn't realize this came from Daniel 9. I recognize a lot of it because so it appears that the prayer that I know, which is a prayer of repentance, is using a lot of these things. So
I would actually like to read the paragraph before this verse and then probably this verse.
go ahead.
This is Daniel 9, kind of 4-ish. Lord, the great and awesome God who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and keep his commandments, we have sinned and done wrong. We have been wicked and have rebelled. We have turned away from your commands and laws. We have not listened to your servants the prophets who spoke in your name to our kings, our princes, and our ancestors, and to all the people of the land. And then this is 7. Lord, you are righteous, but this day we are covered with shame. The people of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem and all Israel, both near and far, and all the countries where you have scattered us because of our unfaithfulness to you.
Keep on reading. Read if.
We and our kings, our princes, and our ancestors are covered with shame, Lord, because we have sinned against you. The Lord our God is merciful and forgiving, even though we have rebelled against him. We have not obeyed the Lord our God, or kept the laws he gave us through his servants the prophets. All Israel has transgressed your law, and turned away, refusing to obey you.
Yeah. So this is the.
Forgive yourself, I think, is the prescription.
Say that again?
Forgive yourself, I think, is the prescription I would give.
Well, I think for me, I mean, saying slichot, saying penitentiary prayers, yeah, there's definitely a thing of forgiveness there. There has to be. But I think part of it is also we have to turn to God in repentance, and part of that is recognizing our shame. So Neil deGrasse Titan says, I heard a rabbi say that Adam's nakedness was symbolic. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of people who take the Bible too literally. I think that's a mistake. The Bible is teaching us things, and first and foremost, we should try to understand that which God is teaching us. And just like when, if I'm teaching something and I give a particular analogy or allegory, I have no problem with people who want to believe things. If you want to believe the Bible literally, I think you're making a mistake. I think if you don't believe that the Bible has any truth in it, I think you're making a very big mistake. I think we have to understand that God is communicating in his infinite nature to finite human beings who cannot understand things fully. And so I think it's a mistake to take things too literally. Like, okay, was Adam actually naked? Like, it says God was walking in the wind of the evening, right? It's like, Well, what does that mean? God was walking, right? God doesn't walk, right? Um, so yeah, for me, I think we have to get away from being too literal, and that's part of what this corner of the internet really talks about a lot. I think, you know, the metaphorical truth being important and stuff. Yeah. So, what were you saying, Trey?
Oh, sorry, I'm continuing digging into this because I'm a nerd. Um,
It's actually a really beautiful. I love the prayer. I wish my voice was not horrible so I could sing it. Let me see if I can find
the
it on
funny thing
YouTube.
is that I don't have a reference point, so it might as well be the most beautiful thing to me because like I don't ever hear like Hebrew chanting or whatever, and so.
Mm.
But anyways, yeah. Um, point being sort of turning away from your own like weaknesses. I'm not sure how relevant this is, but 2 Corinthians 12:9 ish.
Mm.
My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness. And now I'm reminded in my mind that you probably don't like this because of who wrote it.
Who wrote it? Oh, it's one of the Paul's things.
I am not 100% sure, but I would predict that it's someone that you don't think well of, let's say. Um, but anyways, grace, that's like in my research what seemed like grace overcomes shame. That seems to be the message that I would agree with. But
Okay,
Do
I'm
you think
gonna
any of us will look back in
play
our lives and regret the things we didn't
once
buy?
this ad is over. Can you hear things or no?
I can hear your voice. I can't hear right now anything else.
You're not hearing.
I
I'm
hear
not sure.
zero things besides your voice.
Hmm. I'm not sure if the other people can hear.
Yeah, maybe on your stream. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm just playing a tiny bit of Silly Hawk. Yeah. So for me, it really. I mean, it was. I loved Slichot. It's one of my favorite liturgies. So if anybody's ever interested, you can look that up. But yeah. So you were saying, Trey.
I'm actually trying to figure out what to say now.
Oops. I made a mistake. There we go.
I think I've had this conversation with people before, and I think most of the time with these kinds of things, I just sort of chalk it up to that I use words differently than other people. Like I said to you, the guilt, the shame, and the hate, bad things, all three of them.
Hey,
And
Beth. Beth is in the comments as well.
hello, internet. Grace reigning, I think, might have been a scripture, and so that's sort of the thing that seems amazing to me.
Yeah, so I think it's good to have shame at times, like it says in. Actually, it says both in Daniel 9:7 and 9:8. We, on us is shame. Well, literally, I mean, you could translate it as we. It is our. It is our obligation to be ashamed, like that, and that's why the words stuck with me. Lanu boshet hapanim. We should have shame, and I think, yeah, that's right. So we should have shame at times, but I think you're also right. Like it says, um, yeah, to the Lord our God belong mercy and forgiveness.
I think this is probably the last thing I have to say about it. Romans 5:21. So that just as sin reigned in death, so also grace might reign through righteousness, to bring eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. So that grace might reign, man, that seems so awesome.
Yeah, until the last part, I was with him. I don't I think yeah I think you can turn to God directly. I don't see why thing. Beth says this conversation reminds me of Psalm 51. What's Psalm 51? Let's look up Psalm 51. Psalm 51. Love Natan Hanavi. Right, so this is when Natan came to David regarding Elisheva. So this is the one which says Lev Tahor. Yeah, this is verse 12. Lev Tahor bar Ali Elokim Veruach Nachon Chadesh Bekiri. Tashlichi. My voice is so horrible. I'm sorry. I wish I had a good voice and I could sing. This is like beautiful stuff.
So that sinners will turn back to you, a phrase in there. Deliver me from the guilt of bloodshed.
Here, I think I can do this, and then you would be able to listen. If you want, you can.
Broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart, you, God, will not despise. So broken and contrite.
This
Hi,
this is
my
the
name's
song.
Snehal Patel, and I'm the founder of Simpler Hair Color, a safer and
Um,
simpler way to dye.
Sherry, how you doing? Sherry's here.
Welcome.
She
I was
says,
about
"I
to say
love
the
that,
picture of me.
Jacob. I'm not sure what she loves though." But yeah, so this song is nice. Anyway, if any of you people want to come onto the chat on my Discord, you can. She says, "I'm good." Okay, so what were you saying, Trey?
I mean, I was sort of saying that's the last thing I had to say was that Romans one, but now this other person has said Psalms 51, and so
Yeah.
verse 17, I'm trying to look up like Hebrew words and stuff. The English in mine says, "My sacrifice, O God, is a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. You, O God, will not despise."
Which verse?
17 of Psalms 51.
Oh, right. So this is actually okay. Um, Trey, go into. I'm sharing my screen. Go in there, and I think you'll be able to listen.
I see the screen. I hear nothing.
I haven't started it yet. So
Oh.
now you're okay. Now you're seeing. Verse, you said verse 17. I think that's verse 16 in the Hebrew. Save me from my guilt, O God.
The sacrifices of God, a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart. And the thing that I would be doing is distinguishing broken / contrite from shame.
Let me look this up in a Christian Bible so I can see what verse you're talking about. So Psalm 51:17.
And on my thing it says this here, Nishabrid, Nidike. And I was actually going to try to say it in Hebrew because now I know how to say that. Kara, I think?
Nishbara.
Oh, Nishbara.
Yeah. So Zivchei Elohim Ruach Nishbara Lev Nishbar Venitke Elohim Lo Tivzeh.
Okay, and you say it really fast. I want that crushed one. I heard the other one.
Okay, so let's say it really slowly. I can. Oh, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah, I also see it on mine. Let me put yours on full screen.
Okay, so it says Zivchei Elohim Ruach Nishbara Lev Nishbar Venitke Elohim Lo Tivzeh. Do you want to try reading it yourself?
Yeah, I was trying to a second ago. Okay, so I guess all of it I'll try to tackle. It's a little bit blurry on your screen. I wonder if I might do
Let
it.
me make it bigger. Now can you see it?
Yes, I think I can. But what is that first letter? It's the Z. It's not the
That's
Z.
a Zion, yeah.
Oh, I got it right! Yay!
Yeah.
So what is this? Z. Let's see. The one with the dot in is a B. So this is a V, or is this different?
So there's no dot in it, so it's a V sound, yeah.
So Ziv, or is that like a vertical line?
No, that's right. Ziv.
Ziv. And then He? Or is that
That's a chet, not a hey.
right? What was that guttural sound? Is that what
Yeah.
you-
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. So Ziv. He. Elohim.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Ruch.
Well, remember that this is a patach genuva, so the patach comes before the chet with ruach.
Ruach.
Yeah.
And how am I supposed to know that? Is that just something to memorize?
Yeah, so if a guttural comes at the end of a word and it has a patach underneath it, the patach is said before it. So it's what's called a stolen patach. So patach genuva. And so you say it before the guttural. So instead of saying rucha, you say ruach.
Okay. Ruach.
Yeah.
And then nish. Bara. Is that how you say it?
Yes. Sherry says, "Great job, Trey."
Thanks, Sherry. Jesus love nish bara. And then
The hey at the end is silent. Nishbara.
yep, got that. So lev. I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to think of the lev or left. It's
Lev. That means heart. Yeah.
Cool. And then niche. Oh, that's the same thing, isn't it? No,
It is
almost.
now. It's in the masculine because lev is masculine and ruach is feminine. So ruach nishbara, broken spirit. Lev.
Nishbar.
Yeah, that's the masculine. So a broken spirit and a broken heart.
What is that? It's not Dalit. Can you just tell me that middle letter with the shva?
That's a dalet. Yeah, that's a dalet.
There's a Dalit. Okay, so then Vinid. Let's see here. Okay.
Yeah, venitke. Mm-hmm.
Vinid. Okay. And then this is Elohim. And then, Lo.
Mm-hmm.
Tiv.
Mm-hmm.
Ze.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ze.
Yeah, tivzeh.
Yay, Hebrew fun.
Good
All right.
job. You're getting there. you do better than most people.
Yeah, I was about to say the funny thing is the reference point being just random people on BOM is like I know better than just like
Not even
Yeah.
just random people on BOM. Honestly, I think most Jews for their bar mitzvah don't learn better to read better. Like, yeah, yeah. So you read better than a lot of people.
Yep.
A lot of people who've studied Hebrew, you read better than. Yeah.
No, you're better. All right. So, anyways,
Well, yeah, I actually know some Hebrew.
lol.
Anyway,
Anyways.
anything anybody else wants to talk about or you want to talk about? But yeah,
I think I've talked enough for now. We'll see what happens.
yeah. Um, yeah, so I don't know what. Yeah, so 17 on mine is, "O Lord, open my lips and let my mouth declare your praise." And what I found out just a few days ago, and I was really surprised, was I had been saying this wrong. Like, and we say this verse a lot. It's all over the liturgy. So it's 51, 18, I think, no, it's 51. What? 51. Why is this so off? Oh, 52. No. Why is this so off? 51:17. Let's see, 51:16? No. 51:15? Yeah, 51:15 is this verse, and I had always been saying Hashem safatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilotecha, because I had thought that this was in plural and it's not, and I had been reading it wrong for like 20 years and like several times a day for like 20 years.
And so, to be clear about the correct, it's a singular praise.
Yeah, it's tehilatecha instead of tehilotecha, and I had you almost always, I mean, I think in most places it's tehilot, not tehilatecha. I think it, and so I guess I just read it that way, and I was wrong.
Gasp! People are wrong. Whoa.
Yeah, but I mean, can you imagine? I had been reading it wrong for like
20.
20 years, and like when I was saying the liturgy, you say it at least 3 times a day. More like you say it closer, well, for some
What
days
is that
5.
thing about people becoming an expert after 10,000 hours of X endeavor? You're like, or I guess just all Jews are like brought up to be experts in
So
liturgy.
there's something that I think it's from the Talmud that says that somebody who not studies but like rehearses rehearses repeats, like their goes over their studying 100 times, is not like somebody who does it 101, because like each time you're supposed to learn something more in it. And like people who are serious about their Torah study, like they actually, look over and over again. I mean, just for example, the weekly parsha, right? You're supposed to study it 3 times before it's read in public. So an observant Orthodox Jew really goes over the weekly parsha at least 4 times every week. Yes. So Beth asks, and Sherry asks, what's the difference? So tehilatecha means your praise, singular. Tehilotecha means your praises. And usually it's tehilotecha, right?
Thinking English
Your praises, but this is singular. Tehilatecha. Yeah. It's not a huge difference, and even in English, it's one letter difference, but it's still weird that I was saying it wrong so long. Like I saw it and I'm like, hold on, isn't this Tehilotecha? And then I looked it up and it's like, no, it's not. So yeah. You learn something new every day. That's why you're alive. When you stop learning, you stop living. I think we've lost. We have lost. Is it then more unified? Not sure I would say more unified. We've lost our tray. I'm gonna. Okay. Kind of like so. I guess it's more unified in a sense, but I mean, in context, what's the next verse? Ki lo tachbot zevach ve'etna ola lo tirtzeh. Right? Yeah, these sacrifices are in the singular, although in Hebrew it's usually in the but like God doesn't desire sacrifices and things like that. Yeah, I guess. I mean, the whole thing is kind of talking in a singular way. David is saying like, and that verse is how we start. We start the Amidah, which is the main prayer part of the services. So, yeah, it makes sense that that's the thing there. So, anybody have anything else to talk about, chit chat about? I lost my chat partner. Sherry, how have you been? I saw you in a few videos. I haven't seen you in a while. It's been a bit. Sherry! Can you hear me? We kind of sort of have Sherry. But I can't hear her.
Oh, here I am.
There you are. We have Sherry.
Well, I had to come and join you.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. How have you been? It's been a while. We haven't talked in like a bit.
In a long time, Jacob. Yeah, I've been okay. When was it? Sometime in January, I got really sick. I got shingles, and then found out that I also had pneumonia, and so I've just been recovering from that. And that was my second case of shingles in 6 months. So yeah, it's been a long road. I'm finally feeling sort of normal again, but yeah, it's been a long haul.
So, how are things in Kanakistan?
Oh, have you been keeping up?
I have. So I was really upset when so two conservative members of parliament said that um, said that um, people who had given small donations had their bank accounts frozen, and a lot of people were saying, "Well, no, that they must be lying," and so that bothered me. And it was
Yeah.
the type of thing that I thought needs to be clarified, because the it's that type of factual thing which people
Yeah.
don't pay attention to. And like Jordan Peterson retweeted one of the members of parliament who said that, and he actually gave a name, and like people were like, no, there's no way it happened. And there were several people I started talking to on Twitter, which I should stay off Twitter, but I sometimes go on there, which I shouldn't. But so there were several people who were like, no, it couldn't possibly have happened. And I'm like, you know what? Then we need to find out. And so I've just, even today, I checked on the CBC. So the CBC actually asked one of the ministers, and the minister's answer was, we really need to be very careful about how we talk about things, which to me was like, well, you're not saying it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then I mean, I'm glad that the Trudeau administration then took it off, like stopped their the whole emergency thing and stuff. But
Yeah.
I still want. It bothers me that they haven't gotten to the bottom of it. Did this
Yeah.
happen or not? And if it did happen, so your civil rights, like the Canadian ACLU equivalent, it actually seems to be a lot more reasonable, and
Yeah.
so they had they're still suing.
Yeah. They filed a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that, yeah.
Couple of things. There's also the gentleman that got completely stomped by the horses that you haven't heard a word about.
I thought that was a woman.
Well, there was two people. There was a man, and the woman was knocked down and stepped over, but there was a guy who, from the footage, they show close-ups of the horse actually standing with his back feet on his chest.
Wow.
And you haven't heard a word about that guy. It's like he didn't even exist. And I just wonder, I mean, Trudeau, like the businesses in downtown Ottawa, when the convoy was there, the city recommended that they stay closed.
Right.
And then Trudeau gave them money for the time that they were closed. So essentially he paid them to stay closed. And there were some businesses that didn't stay closed, and they got harassed by the police on that final weekend when they went in and shut everything down.
Yeah, that's what bothered me. I heard, and I saw a video of a police somebody from the police going by the coffee shop. And yeah, it's, I mean, honestly, the United States isn't that much better. It really isn't.
No, I mean, you just have the advantage of states, of states doing things differently, right? So it's not, I mean, it's good in that sense, but it's also, like, we got a unifying effect in Canada because this affects everyone at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But, people in California aren't having the same experiences as people in Florida, for example, you know? And so if it's not affecting everyone at once, I was watching a commentary on the American truckers convoy, and what was
I
it?
don't know what happened with that.
Well, some local radio station showed up to, you know, on the day that they were supposed to arrive in Washington, and there were like 10 people waiting for them. And I thought their commentary was pretty good, actually, because they said the same thing. Like, the politicians there, when they heard about them forming, they just got rid of all the mandates, and then they were kind of doing this for nothing. You know, like it lost its. They pulled the carpet out from underneath of them, is what they did. So, but Trudeau just doubled down on everything, and yeah, I have to say, like, I said to my husband today that the stark contrast that happened for me was when Trudeau, you know, basically removed all the rights and freedoms of Canadians, right? In one fell swoop with the Emergency Measures Act, and then he quickly changed his mind when he thought it would look bad for him politically because the Senate was going to vote against it.
Well, at least there's that. I was surprised that the House didn't vote against it.
Yeah, well, you know what he did? He said, before they voted, that if anyone voted against it, it was essentially a vote of non-confidence. And in the parliamentary system, that would trigger an election.
Right. Yeah.
And so he basically told them that if they vote against it, that they're going to trigger an election, and nobody was ready for that, so they didn't.
Well, I don't know if I mind that so much, because like, holding an election over politicians, what bothers me is, you know, will people remember in the next election who voted for or against?
Yeah.
And people don't remember anything.
No.
It's become it's completely the 24-hour news cycle, and now everybody's talking about Ukraine, and a bunch of them have completely forgotten about anything regarding COVID.
Yeah. Someone made a comment today that there was, you know, during that whole protest for 3 weeks and all those people on the street, there was not one word about COVID from the mainstream media. Like, it wasn't a super spreader, like, not one word, right?
Huh. I didn't think of that.
A word. Yeah.
I didn't think of that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, with all those people there, most of them maskless. I think almost all of them maskless.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and masks are still mandatory here in British Columbia. Everything is, actually. Everything is still. We're still in a communist country here.
Well, I mean, the horrible part about it is this isn't how the bottom, right? Things could get a lot worse. And I think a lot of people don't really understand how bad it is to live in a genuinely, you know, and they just don't, they have no gratitude for how great we have it, and as it's their craziness and stupidity is just making it worse and worse and worse. We're just gonna, it's just until people finally recognize, yeah, wokeism doesn't work. It's not gonna work. But
yeah. Well, you know, I started to say that the contrast that I saw was, you know, Trudeau doing that, you know, freezing people's bank accounts, having them arrested, trampling people, beating people up who had, peacefully surrendered. And then 2 days later, he's waving his finger at Putin and calling him a dictator.
I saw
You know?
that. And how, they're mostly peaceful protests during BLM when they were
Oh, yeah.
setting things on fire and stuff, and it's like, you guys were mean to people, maybe, like, you yelled at some reporters, and so it's violent.
Yeah, I know. No, they really spun it. They really went all out. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about better things. Nate and no,
Shelley?
yeah, they're having a baby.
I know. Isn't that awesome?
It is, and it's all your fault.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all my fault. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm guessing you watched the interview with PVK.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really nice. They're so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and things are going well for them, and I'm happy for them. And like when Shelley said that I kept saying to her, I never do this. I did. I kept saying that because I never do it. That's the first time I ever.
Maybe you should do it more.
Judaism loves matchmakers, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. So there's a midrash that says that God spends most of his time making matches, and making a match for someone is considered one of the greatest things you could do.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it feels like it. It really felt like it was totally out of my hands.
Mm-hmm.
I told Nate and Shelley this, and it was I kept seeing things, and the way when I say seeing things, like, it's a digital world, right? Like, but I just kept noticing little things, and Shelley was talking to me. We were talking about her life and her wishes and her desires and just her personal things, quite often, just the two of us, and I would see these kind of fleeting interactions between her and Nathan, and I kept thinking, and then there would be this little push,
Yeah.
What are you going to do about that? And I'd be like, I'm not doing anything about that, like nothing, okay? And then one day I was vacuuming, and it was like, okay, so enough is enough. Now you need to do something. Now you need to say something. And I'm like, I'm not. Like, I had this little argument with God, right? I can't do that. I can't take responsibility for that. I don't even know these, and had all these rational arguments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, all right, okay, fine. And another week went by, and then it was just like, so how long are you gonna ignore this? And I said, okay, fine.
And
so,
I mean, obviously, I think because both Shelley and Nate are faithful people, they're this is, I mean, I can already see it's absolutely beautiful, and they're gonna be one of the greatest couples ever, and it's gonna be one of those sweet things. But I have to say, even God forbid, worst of the worst happens from now on, you gave them these, it's been like a year now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But even just the few moments of happiness you get, you have helped them have in their life so far.
Yeah.
And you see it, and I just know when that baby is born, right?
Yeah.
They're just going to be so incredibly And that's a life that you have contributed to bringing into this world.
Aw.
You know? No,
Yeah.
it's
I know
absolutely beautiful.
it is beautiful, Jacob. Like it just it's I can hardly comprehend it actually. Yeah. It's really huge. Yeah. Totally. Totally.
So
Yeah.
how are things with you, your kids, your farm, your animals? Have you brought down the number of animals? I know you were trying to limit the number of animals you had.
No, I'm still at the same number. I have the sheep. I have 18 sheep,
Oh,
and I've got 3 horses and 2 geese. Oh, excuse me, and 3 dogs.
the geese
And
don't fly away.
no, they can't fly. They're
Oh,
too heavy. Yeah. And then I got some chickens, and I've got a cat,
you
a
also
princess.
have a dog, right?
Three,
You
three
have
dogs.
3 dogs. So there's this channel I watch, Sheepishly Me.
Yeah.
She's a Canadian sheep farmer,
Oh, cool.
like an industrial sheep farmer. So she like she's actually breeding sheep in
Yeah.
order to, but I love the so I think she has
Lambs.
lambs. Yeah, she lambs twice a year, and I just love watching the sheep like give birth and the new
Yeah.
babies like start to walk and like
Yeah.
run around. And then it gets a little sad because then she like weans them and then she has to ship them off and
Yeah.
it's like no, don't gain, don't, because she ships them at 110 pounds, and I almost
Oh.
feel like don't eat so much,
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like no, it's the cycle of life, and
It is.
I eat meat, so yeah.
I had a little whoopsie. I had a veterinarian come out and castrate all my male lambs the year before last
Mm-hmm.
when they were little.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he did it, he didn't have to take anything away. He just made sure that it wouldn't work properly.
Okay.
But he didn't do a good job of that. So this fall, I ended up with 2 of them being still rammy,
Okay.
and each having 1 testicle.
Okay.
And so I don't know what awaits me this spring. I don't see any sign of pregnancy at the moment, but usually don't see it till they're ready to give birth anyways.
Mm.
And yeah, and it would be an inbreeding because it would be, sisters and brothers and mothers and sons and stuff. So I'm gonna probably end up having to butcher sheep this year, and I didn't really want to do that.
Mm.
But yeah, I can't keep them all. It's just, and they're
Look,
probably not great either.
we
so.
we eat meat, and animals live in the moment, and this
Yeah.
this was the hardest part for me when I had to put my dog down. I always
Oh,
told
no.
myself, not Happy. I'm
Oh.
talking about Duke before Happy.
Okay.
But so I had always told myself when he's not, so a lot of people wait much longer than I think is reasonable. When
Yeah.
your dog is suffering any days, like if they're having bad days and they're old enough that they're not going to get better, I think that's, you're already okay. This dog
Yeah.
needs to be put down.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I finally realized how I had been deluding myself for at least 3 months, and it probably closer to 6 months be after I had told myself I would have put him down, I went and I put him down. And it was horrible and I cried, but part of what really bothered me was that I couldn't get myself to I couldn't get myself, like, I realized afterwards all the things that I hadn't done, like I hadn't paid attention to, even though I knew, like, when I did his final weighing, so he was 45 pounds usually. When I did his final weigh-in, he was 35 pounds. He had lost 10 pounds. And I had, like, not seen because I didn't want to see.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and then when I got happy, so my whole thing was, my criteria was, once he didn't wag his tail, I was going to put him down because he wasn't happy, right?
Right.
And then when I got happy, and I woke up in the morning, and you know how dogs get so excited when you wake up in the morning? It's like,
Yeah.
so I'm not a morning person. I hate getting up in the morning, but
Yeah.
dogs make getting up in the morning so much better for me because they're so happy you just woke up. I love it.
It's true.
And I woke up, and Happy was just excited like Duke used to be, but he hadn't been for a very long time.
Yeah.
And, like, her tail was wagging, and she was just so excited that I got up and I just started crying.
Aw.
But
yeah,
I think we anthropomorphize animals too much. We don't put them down. In Los Angeles, definitely. I mean, even when I took him to the vet to put him down, the vet's like, "Why are you putting him down?" I'm like, "He's old. He's like," and I had to explain to him, and it's like, he should realize. I have seen so many dogs and cats that should have been put down a long time ago, in my opinion.
yeah.
Especially considering, I mean, how many dogs and cats there are out there. And there are shelters that, like, they really do not, they're full, and they keep dogs and cats way longer than they should, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
But it's not, like, people don't like when you say stuff like that.
No, I know. Yeah. Yep. It's, yeah. I get what you're saying, though.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I eat meat. I realize a human life is different from an animal life. And I think for a lot of people, especially in Los Angeles, for people who their dogs are their kids, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're always sad to see them go, but it's better to, not let them suffer.
Yeah, why should a dog suffer? And honestly, it's like, even one of my aunts, several years ago, she had cancer, and then it went into remission, and then 15 years later she got cancer again, and she couldn't withstand the chemotherapy. So
Yeah.
they did radical surgery, and they stopped the chemo, and she lived another, I think, 6 to 8 months, and she passed away. And it was like, even for human beings who remember and stuff like that, and dogs live in the moment.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah.
So Happy's doing good?
Happy's doing good. I mean, she's getting older. She's almost, well, she's going to be 10, I think, in Thanksgiving. Her birthday's right around Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And for a dog, I did not mean to get a dog as big as Happy. She's 80 pounds.
Yeah, she's a big girl.
And 80-pound dogs, they usually don't live as long as smaller dogs. Duke was 14 when I put him down.
Oh, that's a good age.
Yeah. But still, I mean, so she's almost 10. I mean, she's, I guess, 9.5. And it's like, well, how many more years does she have in her? You know, it's hard. But I got her,
Yeah.
she was 7 already when I got her.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't get puppies. I try to get dogs that are like 2 or 3, something like that.
Right, right.
Don't want
You
to.
go to you go to the shelter,
Yeah,
or what do you
yeah.
do? Yeah.
Yeah, I just go to the shelter. I mean, I. It's part of my anxiety. Like my thing is, even if I don't give them the best life, I at least give them a better life than the shelter. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like,
Absolutely.
um, I I don't know if I would feel as comfortable if like I actually breed a dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, she's had some pretty good road trips with you that I've seen.
yeah, yeah, and she sticks her head out for hours on end out of the window. Oh, she loves it. Yeah, she loves. Well, she kind of loves it, and she kind of. It's weird. Like she barely eats. Like we're 2 weeks on a road trip, and she's excited. She drinks just fine. Her tail's wagging. You know, she's exploring everything, but she barely eats. She eats maybe a fourth of what she usually eats. First 2 or 3 days she doesn't eat at all. And,
Oh, really?
yeah, and then a few times like I've given her stuff and she's thrown it up. It's like she. The thing is, I get the feeling that her previous owners got her as a little puppy, took her home, and she had been in that house for her entire life. And
Oh, wow.
so that's all she knew. And I can tell that they totally spoiled her,
Yeah.
but I think that's all she knew. And then suddenly, you know, there's me who's taking her all over the place. When I first got her, like taking her anywhere, she would not leave the house. Now she's happy to leave the house. But
Okay.
when I first got her, no, she wanted to stay inside all times.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It
But she goes for walks, though, right?
Now she does because she has to. I live in a small apartment, but
Yeah.
so I mean I have to take her for walks
Yeah.
but when I first got her, like any sound, any cars, any skateboards, anything, like she would jump at any sound.
Oh.
Yeah, she I honestly think it's just like imagine your whole life you live inside of a house and then somebody takes you, you know,
Yeah.
out there, you know.
Yeah.
Andre's back on my what on my server. Let me assign him a role. There he is. Okay. Yeah, so that's me and my doggy.
Yeah. Happy kids.
So I saw your discussion with Nate Heil and Yosef.
Oh, yeah. How did you like that?
It was interesting. I mean, he knows a lot of stuff I know very little about.
Yeah, he does know a lot of stuff.
And I mean, he says I dox him. He doxed himself. He is getting his PhD in robotics,
Yeah,
and
I know.
you know he's actually a like a decent robotics scholar. In addition to like knowing so much, and
I know.
yeah. So I call him Rabbi Yosef.
He's kind of a polymath in a sense, you know, like he's very open and has a lot of interests, and he was a great conversation partner. It was really enjoyable. I felt like, you know, I kind of just follow along with the conversation and then throw in my 2 cents where I have some kind of an intuition about something usually. But I don't even know enough about Sophiology, and I know nothing about Kabbalah. So
I know nothing about Sophiology, and like, so I don't have an academic understanding. Like, the little bit I know about Kabbalistic things come from within my religious tradition, right?
yeah,
And that's very different. Like, some of the stuff he mentioned, I had absolutely not heard of at all.
oh really? Eh?
Yeah.
See, I have to. The thing I found difficult was conceptualizing in my head. The what's it called? Sephiroth.
Right, the tree of life. It's sometimes referred to.
Yeah, like you know, because he would mention it, and then kind of go into this description of these. If I remember correctly, like seemingly opposite things, like they stand in, I want to say, entgegen, which is the German word, which is they stand opposite each other.
Right. So there's the left, the right, and the combination in the center. So there is that triad structure as part of it. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And then there was the idea of the feminine. I like that idea of the feminine and the masculine as being more understood as a giving and receiving.
Right.
And how something can be both, right? When it's giving, it's masculine. When it's receiving, it's feminine in Hebrew.
I doubt you've had time to listen to. I did a video. Hey, Andre's in the room.
Hey, Andre.
Yeah, just almost dying from doing weeding.
Doing what?
Weeding.
Oh, you were weeding in the
backyard.
garden? Oh, okay.
Yeah, like these massive stalker weeds.
Okay.
Started taking the rake.
Yeah.
Talking about the Kabbalah and the feminine.
Right.
So there's a link in tarot to the, I think it's a high priestess, where there's the onyx column and the column of quartz, and it's supposed to represent like good and bad, and as above, so as to below. But it's also part of one of the major arcana that when you do the Lurianic Tree of Life spread, and I think it's like in the very near the very center, like a balancing character. So yeah, what was just said about like the divine feminine being like a balancing energy. I think I've seen a little bit in Kabbalah. I know it's like just a tiny bit, but
yeah, but I get the sense though that it's what's the word I want to say? It's not fixed. Like that's what Joseph was mentioning, that the gender in that sense, not that gender is not fixed, but the gender of the divine, you know, the feminine and masculine in Kabbalah is not necessarily fixed. It's dependent on the action of giving and receiving. That's how I understood it.
I mean that there's definitely, I mean there is definitely that, and it is. I mean, so the balance is the masculine and the feminine together, but what I was gonna say is so. David was he's not a Discord person. He's this guy who was on Chris's channel and had a discussion with Chris Pacow. And so he's really into Judaism, but he's a Christian. He's just a normal Protestant, but he's really into learning about Judaism. And so he contacted me to have a discussion. And so we made up to have a discussion, and we just live streamed it. And it was 4 hours. So
Oh my.
yeah, I've been reluctant to like recommend it to people, but it's one of the best videos I think I've ever made.
Well,
And
is it on your channel?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check.
And it's one of the best discussions I've had. I don't know if because he knew enough that we were discussing, and you know my style, like I like to be contentious about contentious things.
Yeah,
but
I know that.
on my channel, I usually like what you know. I jokingly say, you know, destroyed with facts and logic. That's my typical thing. And like, if you watch it, you see I don't destroy anybody with facts and logic.
Yeah, you just annihilate them.
I just
Violate them.
but so we kind of sort of, I mean, this was set up as kind of sort of a debate because he thought that there were things he could he thought he was in a better position to actually discuss these things with me than most people, and he was right about that. Definitely, he understood. He understands a lot of things a lot better. In fact, at one point, he started talking about things in a way that I was like, okay, this is kind of getting. I called it pornographic. Not because it was a little explicit in the sexual sense, but it was so explicit in the esoteric sense that I didn't feel comfortable.
Right.
And so he knew enough that, you know, we could discuss on that level as well.
Right.
And it was actually, I think it's one of the best discussions that we had, but I'm not sure. I really wonder, and that's why I asked Sam about it. Oh, by the way, did you see Father Stephen on Sam?
I haven't watched it yet, but I did see that he had that today.
Okay, so like I actually I linked it on Bridges of Meaning. Notice me, Senpai noticed me, because Sam brought me up, and Father Stephen said, I've actually lurked on some of his live streams.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like my commentaries of his videos.
Nice.
So he knew who I was. I was like,
that's good.
Senpai noticed me.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's great.
So how you doing, Andre? What's up with you? How's Down Under?
It's that weird transition period here where summer is just like just about ended, but it's never a discrete ending. It's like a continuous ending where it merges into the next season.
Well,
and
do you guys get actual winters down there? Like, do you end up having like snow and stuff?
Some places.
There's snow in the mountains, like Mount Buller and stuff, but that's because like of the elevation. And I don't think we don't get like an American winter.
Well, in Los Angeles, we don't get a winter either. Like, it barely ever snows in Los Angeles, so.
It never rains, I thought.
Oh no, it does rain. It doesn't rain enough, but
Yeah.
that's part of the
I've- yeah.
thing.
I've never known it to snow here, like, whatsoever. Just whether it's winter or not. Like, to get to the snow here, you go to the snowfields, and that's it.
About 20 years ago, it snowed in Los Angeles, and like it melted the minute it hit the ground. It was front page news.
Of course it was.
Yeah. And Sherry gets real snow.
Oh yeah, I got real snow this year. Holy.
But it's not snowing
too much.
anymore. Is March still snowing?
What state is real snow in? You talking like Midwest or something?
Well,
We still have, everything is white here. We've still got about 3 feet of snow on the ground.
okay.
And it's about -10 at night. And it's been about anywhere between +5 and +9 during the day. And so what that does is it melts the snow on the top, and then it freezes hard at night, and then you can actually walk on top of the snow, which is really kind of fun. And
Father Eric lives in North Dakota or South Dakota. I forget which one. North Dakota. And like it's 10 degrees below freezing. No, it's 10 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit, which is like 40 degrees below freezing. And it's like, no, human beings should not be living in such, well, yeah.
Yeah, you say that, then you're talking about like California. Human beings shouldn't be living on fault lines.
That too.
That's a good point.
Like to the point where when Andre with the Bangs was doing a podcast with Shane a year and a bit ago, they were halfway through and there was like a little bit of rumbling in the room. They went, "Aha, maybe it's an earthquake," and they stopped for a second, and then the shelves were moving, and he stopped and goes, "Oh, it actually is an earthquake. We need to pause the recording." You can see that in the editing.
So
I thought that was very Californian.
This is something I've noticed with people who move to Los Angeles. In the beginning, they notice all the small earthquakes, and it's like having a 3.0 earthquake every once in a while. It's just small enough that like we really don't notice it. And I realize that sounds crazy, but we don't get actually big earthquakes that actually, really make you stop on a regular basis. Like something like that happens maybe once a year, once a couple of years, right?
We had one here, and it was the first one like I've ever actually noticed. Going, oh, that is a quake. And, that was on 22nd of September of last year, and that said it was a 5.9 magnitude. And then in Melbourne we've had I think 2 other ones, and from what I can Google, the one I remember was I think it said it was 2.7 on the Richter, and people were posting around all these memes of like, those crappy plastic garden deck chairs,
Right.
and tipped over.
Yeah.
And it said like Melbourne earthquake 2000 and whatever. Never forget.
Well, okay, you have to
Hey, Dad,
understand.
I'm gonna sign off. I'm gonna say goodbye.
Bye, Sherry. It was
Okay,
nice
see
talking
you.
to you.
Yeah, you too. Bye, Jacob.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave at the top of the hour, so in like 7 minutes.
Yep.
But yeah. So the Richter scale is it's a logarithmic scale. So an earthquake, so a 6.0 is 10 times stronger than a 5.0. So underneath a 5 in Los Angeles is not gonna. It's not really gonna affect anything, even if it's right here. Um, but once you start getting to close to 6, like a 5.9, that's something that starts getting serious. And then I forget how much the Northridge earthquake was. I think it was like a 7.2 or something like that. And it was centered very close to where I am now and where I was living there. Like, this whole area for a very for there are still buildings around here which have not been repaired from the Northridge earthquake, which was like 30 years ago.
Like, I mean, because that's one thing. Like seeing the external damage and like what it actually does, versus like what you're talking about for like not feeling anything if it's under a certain number. I think there's a few things to that. There's like expecting it, and then over time having habituation to sort of smaller quakes, and then your geolocation from wherever the quake was, because you get from the shear line of the tectonic plates, you'll get the first shock and then the second aftershock, and then the fact that it's logarithmic, so that one that's like a 3, 4, whatever, depending on where you are and what you're doing. Like if you're somewhere where there's a lot of cars moving and there's like a lot of noise and like stable buildings, it's not like you're gonna go, oh wow, like a earthquake tremor. But if you're in a quiet like shanty shack and you've got like one sort of like desk with wobbly legs, and it's just you in there, and there's like a 3.5, and you go, oh, my pencil cup sort of fell over a bit. You'll notice like the minutia. And it like in psychological terms, you'd call it like a Weber's law.
A what?
It's the psychological terms, it would be Weber's law.
Weber's law?
So that
I've never heard of
it's
that.
in perception, senses and perception. There is a difference between being able to feel a difference between something that has like a very large difference in the senses, like the stimuli and the received stimuli, and then there is a lot less of like a feeling of a difference when the received stimuli and the perceived stimuli are very close together. So, for example, like if you pick up something that's equivalent mass of your hand, so like it doesn't feel like you're lifting up a lot, then the stimuli coming in, like your sense of picking it up is like it's effortless. But if you try and pick up like a 20 kilogram dumbbell, now you've got a difference between 20 kilograms and mass of your hand, so like a couple of pounds or something. Then that difference, the perceived sense is that it's like, oh, this is effortful to try and do this, so I'm getting a lot of sensation of perceiving this more.
Yeah. So the Northridge earthquake was a 6.7. It was at 4:30 in the morning, and there was about $25 billion of damage.
Wow, was that so? The biggest one was at the San Andreas.
So the San Andreas fault is the big one that's supposed to blow. And I remember as a kid, like in the 80s, they were telling us, oh, the San Andreas is gonna blow. We have to be prepared. It's due to blow. So it's like a every 100 years or so, there's an earthquake, a big one, down the San Andreas Fault. And this one's, when it happens, it's going to be huge. But, like, geologists expect it to happen within the next 30, 40, 50 years, maybe? It's already overdue, but on a geological scale, they can't tell us, oh, it's definitely going to happen in the next 100 years even, right? So and that's not the biggest one, actually. The biggest one, there is a fault through Northern California, I think it is.
Right.
And if that one goes, that's when you're talking about, like, I think that they're estimating it'll be like a 9 point something, and like a 9.0 earthquake will flatten anything, like anything near it.
Yeah, that's the thing, because by then, earthquake proof and earthquake resilient buildings will be like so much improved. But it's not just the case of like building things which can resist it. Because of the blades shifting and shearing past each other, like the very land itself is going to be torn. So we would have to get to a point where we're sort of what's a word for like not geoscaping, but like what we're supposed to do if we go to Mars and we treat the
geoforming.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
We would have to get to a point of geoforming where, if the land is so much damaged, we could just go, okay, well, we know how to fix it. We're going to just put it back to where it was, or do whatever.
Yeah.
But even that, like, it doesn't seem like something you could get around.
Yeah, I mean, you can't live your life constantly thinking about all of the worst things that could possibly happen. You know, yeah, okay, it's been 2 hours, and I have to go walk my dog, actually. I am going to talk to you later, Andre, and everybody on the internets. I'll talk to you later.
It was good chatting.